Right. External communications is an interesting one because there's lots of, so if you enter the realm of social media, which we do, there's a whole bunch of free tools. So we didn't go too far down that path. So let's start with Google Analytics. This is another tool. So I'm sorry, I was going to say this is another tool for Google Grants, but that's actually not the case. This is a tool that's simply free to everyone. Google Analytics, extremely useful. By far the best bang for the buck on the market right now for website analytics. You basically install a little piece of code on your website, and then it will show you a lot of detailed analytics about who, well, not specifically who, but how many people or what kinds of people have come to your website, and allows you to slice and dice in a fair amount of detail. There is nothing even remotely comparable, which is free or low cost. You're probably talking hundreds of dollars at least to get close to Google's functionality.
Yeah, analytics is amazing.
Actually, another comment, since so many of these things are Google products, just another comment about kind of the Google universe. So it's interesting, in the United States, we generally think of Google as a fairly benevolent, operator. They're obviously collecting data about us and storing it. So Google Analytics, they're able to track a lot of the website traffic across the entire web by giving away analytics for free. In other countries, interestingly, there are basically just swaths of popular opinion. Like, for instance, I was speaking to a group in Australia, and in Australia it's simply popular opinion that Google is out for evil and we shouldn't feed the Google data monster. So do keep in mind, so there's no immediate downsides of using something like Google Analytics. It's not like they are actually doing something with your data or will, find out who's visiting your website or doing anything that's going to affect you directly. But from a philosophical standpoint, there are people who object to the idea that Google is gathering so very much data and thinking about what, in fact, they may do with it. So it's worth kind of some philosophical thought as to whether how that fits onto your list of priorities. Vertical response. So there are a fair number of broadcast email tools, and quite honestly, they're all fairly similar. So the idea is that if you want to send out an email to a group of 100 people, 1,000 people, 1 million people, you have a tool that you put the message in. It stores your list of constituents. Most of them will let you do some create your message into a template. It'll allow you to segment your list. You send out the message, and then it shows you a report, or some report, so it allows you to see who's opened, who's clicked through, and things like that. Vertical response is in the realm of freeness. Has a nonprofit program where they give 501c3 nonprofits up to 10,000 emails per month for free. So that's either one email to 10,000 people or 4 emails to 2,500 people, or it's actually the count of emails. After 10,000 emails, it's a little more expensive than some of its compatriots, at about 15,000 emails a month or so. It's definitely worth shopping around because it's, even with your 10,000 for free, it's not quite as affordable potentially anymore. But if you are, like, for instance, sending out an e-newsletter to all of your lawyers, you're unlikely to have 10,000 lawyers, and therefore you can probably use this whole tool for free. Let me just pause for a moment. We had a lot of chat traffic for a while, and now people have stopped asking questions. Any questions or any thoughts from any of you out there listening as to any of the things that we've talked about so far? You are muted, but you can certainly enter something in the chat now or at any point to ask a question.
Two things on the email side. Number one is LSNTAP still is hosting email lists through Mailman, and we are happy to do that for organizations. We are looking at moving those over to another type of tool in the coming months, probably halfway through, if not the last quarter of this year. We're probably going to be moving over to Google Groups, although we're looking at other alternatives.
fantastic. Brian, you were breaking up slightly, just to repeat. So LSNTAP is offering to host discussion lists that you might want, and they are looking for moving tools, potentially from Mailman to Google Groups. Terrific. All right, so other outreach tools. Eventbrite. So if you're looking for simply a good bang for the buck way to either take RSVPs for an event, so something that's going to look a little more professional than like something like Evite, or you're looking to take money for events, Eventbrite is a really kind of a really nice, polished, low-end solution. It's free for free events, so if you're not taking money, it costs you nothing. And it is relatively inexpensive for paid events. I think they take about 3% off the top, which is a pretty low price for this type of thing. So just a good one to know about if you're doing event registration.
Yeah, locally, we've worked with Brown Paper Tickets, and they've been willing to give us a free event price for nonprofits also.
Oh, great. Yeah, Brown Paper Tickets is a great, so that was the tool that Brian just mentioned, is a great, they're a little more upscale than Eventbrite. They're a little more expensive for paid events, but they support things like assigned seating. If you have, like, for instance, like a movie or a theater event.
Yeah, we like Eventbrite because it integrates with, we use MailChimp instead of Constant Contact, and the integration is just really nice to be able to, within one simple workflow, to put out event invites to email by the MailChimp Eventbrite integration. Solid.
Great. Terrific. Let's see. So kind of in the same light, if you are looking to do surveys, they've recently made our life easier in covering the low-end survey space. There used to be two. One was SurveyMonkey and one was Zoomerang. SurveyMonkey just bought Zoomerang. So now there's only one. There's certainly many survey tools. There's SurveyMonkey is pretty clearly the market leader. Has some basic free functionality, but is also very inexpensive to do even fairly complicated surveys. It has some pretty surprisingly complicated tools to allow you to set up, branch points and different ways to analyze your data. It is what was I going to say? I totally lost what I was going to say. But it's certainly, we use SurveyMonkey over here at Idealware for our research, so it's scalable up to a pretty powerful level. In fact, I know what I was going to say. You can buy it at a month-to-month basis. So if you're only doing one survey, you can pay, like $20 for this month and then cancel it next month. So check out the chat for a lively discussion in regards to Office suites and word processors beside Word. So we talked a little earlier about Google Docs, and we talked about Microsoft 365. There's discussion of OpenOffice. So OpenOffice or LibreOffice, which are two branches of a similar, so it's kind of a Word clone. My thought on OpenOffice, it's interesting, I didn't think to put it in here. It's certainly free, so Microsoft Office is virtually free for 501c3s through TechSoup. To my mind, it doesn't feel worth the kind of branching from something that is different than what most of the market is using for the small amount of cost savings. But certainly is, especially if you're philosophically aligned with open source tools, can be an interesting thing to look into. Online donations, so kind of one that we really like for the bang for the buck for smaller organizations or organizations that aren't actually taking a lot of online donations. Click and Pledge. It is reasonably customizable for this low end of the market, so it's not completely flexible to any look and feel, but it's designed so you can make it look pretty much like your website, and it will. It also supports event sales and item sales. It's 4.75% of each donation, and I think there's a small setup fee, like a $50 setup fee, but there's otherwise no cost. So if, for instance, you don't often get online donations and you want something that's going to just sit there and cost you nothing if you don't take donations, this is a good bet for that. When you're thinking about external communications, certainly think about your search engine optimization, so where you show up on things like Google or Bing. So Google Grants, the same program that we talked about, will also get you thousands of dollars in free advertising. So if, for instance, I type in refugee aid, it will show up over here. So this is likely a Google grant, just by experience. So the Heartland Alliance is urging you to help refugees worldwide to do it. So this is the type of thing that may well be, sort of just to make sure that if you're not already, that if you type in, Illinois legal aid and you provide legal aid in Illinois, that you come up on the first page. All right, a few more tools in this realm. Friend-to-friend fundraising is an interesting technique and is actually fairly applicable to even to folks who really haven't done any other fundraising. So you have, for instance, presumably lawyers who are volunteering their time, part of your community. You have other key supporters. A tool like Razu will allow your supporters to fundraise for you. So, for instance, I could, for Idealware, set up my own Idealware donation page and then ask my friends and family to donate to support, the important work that I'm doing. Board members could all set up their own page, put up their own goal. Razu also supports pictures and videos, so I can make a little video about why Idealware is important. This can be a really interesting tactic to kind of just get started, get your foot in the door in the realm of fundraising. And I think potentially last, maybe second to last, but not least, you've obviously got all the social networking sites, so Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, which are all free. So they are potentially free as in puppies, especially something like Facebook, where it's free to set up a site or a page, and you might definitely do that, but then you need to make sure that you are tending to it over time, that you're actually putting in updates, you're putting in post statuses, or it just looks like a ghost town, and you're going to lose credibility there. So they're giving them the yellow sun. They're free to get going with, but they're probably not usefully free to actually have a compelling strategy, because there's a fair amount of staff time involved in keeping up with them. So our rule of thumb is that...
A quick note on YouTube. LSNTAP tried to host videos internally, and the storage cost along with the lack of views was very negative for us. Once we set up a YouTube channel, all of our storage costs went away. The ease of use is incredible, and our views have over tripled in the last year. Now, it does help that we put out continual content at least once a month, and in most cases once a week. So in order to build that base of users, there is some time, but the cost of hosting and getting it off to somebody else has saved us a lot. We use Vimeo for private videos that we want to password protected, such as training aimed at lawyers that we don't necessarily want getting out to a broader audience. But YouTube has been great for us in cutting down our hosting costs for public videos.
That's a great point. That I don't think you can really count on YouTube as an outreach method necessarily to find new people, but as simply a way to host your videos, and then you can also embed those videos into your own website. So you can, although they're on YouTube, you can, both YouTube and Vimeo, you can put them on your website, and they essentially look like they are on your website. Can be a great solution there. for the rest of these, kind of our rule of thumb in kind of creating an active community on a social networking site is about 2 hours per week per channel, per site. So if you want to have a compelling community on Facebook, you probably need to invest about 2 hours a week. The same is true of Twitter. If you want to do both, you probably need to invest 4 or more. That's kind of a minimum. And last but not least, if you're going down that road, HootSuite is a really interesting tool to help you manage a number of social media channels. It started in the world of Twitter, but will now also support Facebook. So it will allow you to post in advance, to schedule out posts for the future. So I could, schedule out 4 tweets for today and 6 tweets for tomorrow and just be done with it in 10-minute chunks. It will allow you to do the same for Facebook, and in fact to think about how to integrate the both of them, though we don't recommend doing a lot of just duplicate posting across all channels. It also has metrics built into it, so it can be an interesting way to see some interesting information about what's going on. So the basic is free. The Pro, which allows you to add a couple more users, is $6 a month. So not a giant cost there. All right, so that was our drill down into, I believe that is now 31 free and low-cost tools. Anybody, so any questions, any thoughts, any things that people should know about? Ken has brought up Bitly, which is a really important thing to know about. You want to talk a little bit about Bitly, Ken?
Sure. So Bitly's a link shortener, which is like, who cares? The nice thing is that Bitly, if you sign in with an account, will actually give you wonderful, or actually pretty good stats about click-through rates on certain things. So if you're sharing out something from your program, Bitly will capture metrics quite a bit better than the free version of HootSuite. And a couple of friends and I were actually having a conversation a week and a half ago about how even with the paid version of HootSuite, some of the things they wanted to do weren't possible. So just something to consider, to make sure to have a look at. And naturally, in the nonprofit environment, we tend to, more often than not, be really good about it. We make sure that we know what we're going to be paying, what we're going to be getting for when we pay for something. Buffer App, the second item I mentioned, is really, really awesome. The nice thing about Buffer App is, as the name says, it kind of creates a buffer of tweets and posts. So if you have, let's say, content embargoed until a certain date and time, with Buffer, you can have it released at that date and time through the social networks you connect to your Buffer account. And Buffer is free up to a certain point. If you want to, like, let's say, have a buffer that's deeper than 3 days, I think 5 items a day, then you're going to have to pay. But I find Buffer immensely useful because I'm reading something from like, I want this to go out later. I can do that with Buffer, and Buffer lets you reorganize your buffer queue, so if something is more important, then you can release it from the buffer, etc. It's just a nice tool to kind of, like Laura said, if you're going to be doing it right, someone's going to have to spend the time to do it. With the Buffer app, you can actually make it look like if someone's doing it, even if like you did it all at once and scheduled it out.
Absolutely.